Which is better, the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2025 or the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2024? So this is the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2025, and this is the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2024. Now going from the 2024 model of the phone to the 2025 model, it's really more of an evolution rather than a massive redesign. And I think the main reason for that is the 2024 model of the phone was very successful for Motorola, and definitely for a really good reason. This phone is an excellent mid-ranger. We're really getting a lot here for the MSRP of $399. This phone is also offered at some really dramatic deals of the various carriers, so it really made a lot of sense for a lot of people. Not only that, but we are getting a massive display. Of course, we are getting the built-in stylus as well, and we're getting very good cameras too. Now what's good though is that the G Stylus 2025 is just as good, if not better, than the G Stylus 2024. They took everything about this phone and then made it just slightly better here with this device. Now looking at these two devices face on, they do look pretty similar, and that's because they actually have the same display size at 6.7 inches. So when holding the two phones side by side, you can see they're pretty much the same exact size. We're also getting very small bezels on both phones. Now it does seem like with the G Stylus 2024, it's a little bit more squared off compared to the 2025 model, but it really is a very small difference here. Now with the G Stylus 2025, we are getting AMOLED compared to POLED with the G Stylus 2024. I honestly can't tell a dramatic difference between the two display technologies. They are pretty much in the same family of displays, so that makes sense, and both displays really do look excellent. We're getting really good viewing angles, colors really pop, that's for sure, and then both display panels do feature a 120Hz refresh rate, and also they both are 1080p. Both phones also have a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor. And then with the G Stylus 2025, we're getting an 89.3% screen to body ratio compared to 88.2% with the G Stylus 2024. Now the front-facing cameras are hole punches on both phones, and then they are both 32 megapixels. And both devices also feature 256 gigabytes of storage, along with microSD card expansion. But I do like that we're getting that much internal space. 256 is certainly a lot. I'd say probably plenty for most people out there. I know for myself that's enough. But it is still cool to have that option to add in an SD card if you do want to offload some photos and videos, for example, off of your phone. Another nice surprise with both of these phones is they both have 15-watt wireless charging. Typically, you don't even find wireless charging with lower-end mid-range devices, so it's cool to see here that it's actually 15 watts. Both phones also feature in-display fingerprint sensors, so I'll show you first here on the G Stylus 2025. So that's very fast and responsive. And now I'll do the same thing with the G Stylus 2024. That also works really well. And then both devices have dual camera setups. Now at first glance, it might seem like we're actually getting a lot more here with the G Stylus 2025, but that's actually not the case. So both phones do have 50 megapixel main cameras and then 13 megapixel ultra wide angle cameras, but then this thing that looks like a third camera here in the G Stylus 2025 is technically not a camera. It does assist with portrait mode, but that's pretty much it. And then this circle up here is actually the flash, which as you can see on the 2024 model, the flash is off to the side. So we're pretty much getting the same identical setup on both of these phones on the back. Of course, the appearance is different, but the actual functionalities are pretty much the same. And honestly, I haven't found a difference with how portrait mode performs with the 2025 model versus the 2024 model, so I really feel like this camera right here, or whatever this is very pointless. On the other hand though, it's not like it takes away from the phone either, but it does give you kind of an illusion that there's more going on here than what we're getting with this device, but that's really not what's happening. But here's the camera apps on both phones. This is with the main rear camera right now. Then from there, we can go over to 0.5 to access the ultra wide cameras, and as you can see, we can fit a lot more into a single frame. This button right here is for the macro mode, and that's really just using the existing cameras on the device for macro, but you can at least get very close up in this mode, and things are in really good detail. So I suppose there's nothing wrong with that. Then we go over to portrait mode in both phones. One difference I did notice though is that we have these options for 24mm, 35, and 50. I suppose that might actually be a benefit that's offered by this circle camera thing right there, so maybe I was actually wrong about that. Let me know in the comments what you think, if that actually makes a difference or not, or if that's what makes this mode possible. But I feel like it's all software in this mode, at least having the ability to adjust the millimeter of the lens. And then on both phones, we can go over to the More tab and access a lot of different options. Keep in mind though that the G Stylus 2025 does have Android 15, and we still have not gotten that update yet with the G Stylus 2024. And then flipping around to the front-facing cameras in both phones, they both have very good selfie cameras, like I mentioned. And we also have a group selfie option with both devices as well. Another cool thing too is that both phones do support 4K video recording with both the front and rear cameras, which is great. And then both phones do have 8 GB of RAM, however the processor is slightly different. So with the G Stylus 2024, we are getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 6 Gen 1 compared to the Qualcomm Snapdragon 6 Gen 3 with the G Stylus 2025. And then I did run a benchmark test with both phones using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got from that test. So you can see here that I did indeed get higher scores with the 2025 model of the phone, so it's definitely due to it having that newer Snapdragon chip. But honestly, both phones run really fast. I remember when the 6 series or 600 series from Snapdragon used to mean that we were actually getting some real compromises. But honestly, both of these phones really fly. They're both super fast. Even for the 2024 model, after it being out for a year, this phone still runs very quick. So certainly no issues there. And I really think that these phones take care of what most people need. Most people don't need a flagship Snapdragon chip because their regular chips are plenty fast. And another innovation with the G Stylus 2025 is that we're getting faster battery charging. So this phone can recharge up to 68 watts compared to 30 watts with the G Stylus 2024. Now the first thing is, 68 watts is really incredible. That's super fast, and that's actually due to the processor. That's what allows that functionality. It's kind of built into the whole motherboard and all of that. So 68 watts is really incredible. That's faster charging than what we're getting with the Galaxy S25 Ultra. And then with both phones, we are getting the stylus, of course. That is the signature feature, so I'll take that out of both devices. Now, honestly, there haven't really been too many improvements with how the stylus works. It's really just continuing on what's been working well for Motorola. So I'll also show you the stylus here on the predecessor. So you can see side by side, the styluses look very similar. They're actually the same, pretty much the same size. It seems like maybe, yeah, I'd say they're pretty much exactly the same. I was even able to put one stylus into the other phone and vice versa. And then either stylus works with either phone. So I think they're literally the same technology. They just carried it over from one generation to another. And in many ways, they don't really need to make any improvements. The stylus is not necessarily a feature that has to keep getting better and better. Most people that have a phone with a stylus tend to use it for signatures, which is super helpful, but then other things too, like navigating around the phone and then writing notes here and there. So I definitely understand why they can't really add too much more to this. And keep in mind too, these are both mid-range devices, so at least compared to the S25 Ultra with that stylus, you shouldn't be expecting nearly as many features. But other than that, the placement of the ports is all the same. I like that we're still getting a headphone jack here with the G Stylus 2025. Both phones have the same button configuration. We do have an additional microphone here with the 2025 model. I'm not sure why that is, but I suppose that's not a bad thing by any means. And both phones have, of course, the SIM card slot with the micro SD card as well. And then on the back of both devices, this material is actually called vegan leather or eco leather. So it's a silicone polymer material, but it feels very soft to the touch, but still actually feels very much so like leather. But this concludes my comparison of the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2025 versus the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2024. Again, like I mentioned, there's not that many huge changes going from one generation to another, but at the same time, the G Stylus 2025 is still the best G Stylus phone that Motorola has ever created. So I suppose in that regard, this is a solid upgrade. But at the same time, if you find yourself seeing maybe a good deal on the G Stylus 2024, or if you currently have this phone, I would certainly keep it or get it. I don't think necessarily you have to have the 2025 model of the G Stylus, so this phone is still a perfectly good phone, perfectly capable and plenty fast. So I think the only situation to get the G Stylus 2025 is if they discontinue the 2024 model, or if this phone is offered for pretty much the same price as the 2024. But I hope this video helped and made it a little bit easier for you to choose which phone to go for. But this is Kevin here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.